The
Yeah.
position Live. How's everybody doing today? Thank you so much for joining us for the Free Assange Vigil. My name's Andrew Smith. With me this weekend is Misty Winston. We do have special guest Mohammed Elmaazi with us to talk about some of the updates in Craig Murray's case because he does have to turn himself in after we'll get into it, a whole bunch of stuff. Um, but first, I do want to run through the numbers with everybody before we kick this all off. So we have 3,882 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. We have 846 days since since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy to Belmarsh prison after being sold for a $4.2 billion loan to the from the International Monetary Fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have 200 days since Vanessa Breitzer's January 6 ruling denying Julian Assange bail after personally ordering his release and ruling no extradition in his case. We have 1,430 days of pre-trial inhumane detention for the alleged Vault 7 whistleblower Joshua Schultz. At least 996 of those days have been spent under special administrative measures. We have 845 days since the political persecution of Ola Bini started at the hands of the Ecuadorian government. We have 50 days since Commander X was illegally taken from Mexico in violation of international political asylum and rendition to the United States, where he currently awaits his next court trial, which I believe is October 13th. We have 53 days since whistleblower Reality Winner was moved to house arrest and is expected to be moved to parole following good behavior on November 23rd, 2021. We have almost 500 days, 498 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning, and we have 148 days of freedom for the Global Intelligence Files whistleblower Jeremy Hammond. So with that, how are you doing today, Misty?
I am doing very well.
But I know that he put out a tweet that he wants everybody to meet him there and bring a glass to toast. He has like the best sense of humor, even under like the worst circumstances. I mean, he was tweeting about how the queen will now be paying for his dinners again, and he's asking everybody to toast him off as he has to go to prison. So, you know, he's a good dude, and it sucks that this is happening to him. So I'm excited to have Mo on. I actually just interviewed him on Facts on the Ground yesterday. So we're going to dig into it again because unfortunately not a lot of people are talking about it. So, you know, and this is really important. This is, you know, just a further continuation of the attacks on global journalism. So this is a big deal. So we're going to dig into it. So Mo, how are you? How are things going
Um,
for you?
I'm doing relatively well, thank you. I was a bit behind some work because I was unwell for a bit, but so I'm now catching up. I've got some various pieces to finalize and to complete, including one upcoming one on just looking at Julian Assange and Amnesty International. I'll get into that more a bit later. Not
Yeah.
today. I mean, after it's
No,
published.
yeah, once it comes out, I would love to have you on to talk about it. Amnesty's been kind of weird, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, where should we start, Andrew? What do you want to start with?
So if we could, give us just an update a little bit, Mo, about where we are currently in Craig Murray's case, because we were pending appeal the last I think we talked with the High Court over in the United Kingdom. So if you could pick up kind of from there, because the Scottish court appeal was denied and then it got moved over into the UK court system.
Yes. So first they appealed to this, it was the same court and the same judges who found him guilty on one of the charges, contempt of court charges, as a result of what they say was jigsaw identification. And Craig Murray, in order to get to the Supreme Court, you quite often, not always, but it depends on cases, and in this case you apply for permission to appeal the decision from the same court that rendered the decision, right? So they asked those three judges.
Uh-oh.
You're lagging on us a little bit, Mo.
Or frozen entirely.
Oh
Oh,
no.
Lost him. We lost him.
We did.
That's unfortunate.
So while we
Hopefully he
wait
can
for,
pop back in. I
yeah.
can kind of, I mean,
Do
I
you
just
want to talk
interviewed him
about it a little
yesterday.
bit?
Yeah, so I mean, it basically just the oh, you lagged. There you are. You cut off there.
Oh, did I cut off?
You did.
Okay.
Uh-oh. And again.
Oh no.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, you're laggy.
Okay, let me try something else. Hold on. I apologize for that. That's the Wi-Fi.
It happens, man.
Okay, so hold on.
Still laggy. Stupid internet. Yeah, it's always a good time. I'm very out of it today. I just feel very fuzzy-headed. Nope. Yep, he's back. Maybe.
Is
I
this
think we're
any better?
I think we're back. I think you're back. Yeah, you kept freezing up and then disappearing.
How about now? Is this any good?
I think so. I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. Although it's a bit blurry now, but hopefully the it's just one of those things with the camera. For some reason, sometimes it just needs to it gets out of focus, and I don't know what to do to get it back into focus. So
yeah, I'm not good at that stuff.
Yeah. So where were we? 29th of July, which was 2 days from today. Today's the 31st of July. They got word that the Supreme Court had refused the appeal. So as in they're refusing to consider it, right? And we don't have the hard copy as to, it might be a paragraph explanation, it might be a more detailed explanation as to why, but the overall thing is that argument. So I was told, because I spoke to Craig on the same day, right, on the 29th of July, after I found out the news, and he said that their understanding is the Supreme Court's position is that there are no arguable points of law, and that there's no matter of was it public concern or public interest, which I would have to disagree with. I was actually surprised with that one, but just to remind the viewers, there were 3 grounds of appeal, but the 2 main ones were: one is a disproportionate sentence, giving him 8 months, of which hopefully he'll only have to serve 4. But my understanding is that in Scotland, it's not apparently automatic as it is in England and Wales, right? It's their own legal system in Scotland. So in England and Wales, if it was a contempt of court and you were given a sentence of 8 months, then you would serve 4 of them, and then the other 4 you'd be on probation, as it were. And the other ground of appeal, which I considered to be quite significant, was that the test that was applied in relation to jigsaw identification was too vague and ambiguous, that it lacked specificity, that it's unclear what the test should actually be, and of course the defense were arguing that the test was applied too widely, in that the prosecution argued and the judges agreed that to be found guilty of jigsaw identification, that is to say, to be found guilty of publishing information which could piece together, like a jigsaw puzzle, from other information that's perhaps out in the public, or from other articles you've written, or other articles other people have written, or even information that a member of the public has, and combine it together to lead to the identification of somebody who, in this case, is a protected witness who you're not permitted to identify. And the prosecution were arguing that somebody who's very close to, say, the protected witnesses, right, the women who testified that they were sexually harassed in the trial that Craig Murray covered, although the former First Minister of Scotland, was found not guilty, that's irrelevant, right? The whole point is their identities are protected by a court order, and the prosecution say that, let's say you knew one of these people, so you had more intimate knowledge as to who these people are. You didn't know that they were one of the complainants in the case. You just knew them personally and you knew their work. If you could take that knowledge that you have about them and piece together information from one of Craig Murray's articles along with other information you could find, for example, that would be enough for you to have breached the order. I mean, you being, sorry, Craig Murray in this case. So if I as a reader could read your article and then piece together based on other information, the defense were arguing that's too wide a test, right? That it
Right, because
should
they
be.
couldn't even
It's
they couldn't even
crazy.
prove that there was anyone that was able to do that, correct?
Well, it's not necessary, right? You don't have to prove it. You just have to establish to the court satisfaction that the
But let's talk
defendants.
about how crazy that is, because essentially, then, as a writer, how are you supposed to know what information literally all of the people have? How are you supposed to know what articles have been written by other people so that then you can make sure that there's nothing in your article that can be combined with other bits of information to make a connection? That is insane. That's an
Yeah,
insane standard.
I and I personally agree. So as a journalist, so even when I was covering Craig Murray's trial, there was a point at which I was nervous about, because it wasn't 100% clear if I was cleared for tweeting, even though I was cleared to follow the trial, because it looked like there was a secondary clearance if you want to be allowed to live tweet from court. This was for Scottish case if it involves certain types of cases. So in the end, I just didn't do it because I didn't want to be caught violating some rule, contempt of court rule. I agree. I think what it ends up doing is it places it maybe they like that threshold, those judges, because it means that you'll have to choose the better safe than sorry road, which is to publish perhaps nothing about the alleged victims or the protected witnesses, other than just to say this is what they said happened, and then you would have to omit perhaps any location where they said it happened. Perhaps it basically means that you'll have to uh uh sanitize more than you might otherwise do. Of course, Craig Murray's argument, or in his defense bundle, argued that, hey, other journalists in mainstream outlets published more so-called jigsaw identification. So if this is really an issue, how can they be saying that the problem is me when I've published less of what is you argue is jigsaw identification, and yet you're not going after these other people? Unfortunately, selective prosecution is not an actual defense that I've seen. It's not, and the court said, yeah, that's irrelevant, right? Like, we're dealing with your case, right? So you don't really have. I know in the United States sometimes you can raise selective prosecution on the basis that it violates equal protection clauses, right? That, like, certain groups of the equal protection clause in the Constitution, right? That by prosecuting these people but not all these people, that means you're subjecting certain people to discriminatory or selective prosecution. But that's not really a thing here. So that is perhaps important for the viewer to understand, and for the wider public to understand, but it doesn't fly as an argument with these judges. So I agree. Um, and just to finish up, so the viewer understands what's going on, the Supreme Court having refused to hear the appeal, the UK Supreme Court, and very few cases actually get heard by the UK Supreme Court generally, but especially from Scotland, especially in Scottish criminal cases, where the highest court is typically in Scotland, right? They have their own criminal legal system there. And there are, legislative changes made it even more restrictive what kinds of cases you could appeal to the UK Supreme Court. But in certain cases, if it pertains to the European Convention on Human Rights, which is ratified in the UK via the Human Rights Act, freedom from torture, the right to free speech, and all these have exceptions, except for the torture prohibition. There's no exception to it. But slavery, I think, has exception, right? Because, in prison, people are subjected to forced labor, or can be, depending on the country, right? So, you have all these exceptions, and right to a fair trial, right to due process. These are all enshrined under the Human Rights Act, and so therefore, if there's something said to violate one of those principles, you can potentially appeal to the UK Supreme Court. So now, as you guys said, we understand, although I don't understand this directly from Craig, we understand this from an activist, right, Alison, that Craig Murray will be expected to hand himself over to authorities on Sunday, which is tomorrow, the 1st of August, so that he can start to serve what we hope will only be 4 months out of the 8-month sentence. And I hope, because I think when there's ambiguity, when it's not very clear exactly what the law is, I think that should fall on the side of the defendant, not on the side of the state. And I don't think that's exactly what happened here. I also hope, because he has a newborn child, he's in his 60s with various health complications, and they could have resolved this with a fine. I think the press release from the support network, or Craig Murray support justice campaign, noted that this is the first time a member of the media was incarcerated for contempt of court violation in 70 years, is it?
Mm-hmm. In
And
Scotland, it's 70 years, and
Scotland,
in UK, it's 50.
it's 50, yeah. So, it seems disproportionate. It seems heavy-handed. The overall circumstances that they only went after the guy who was most critical of the prosecution of Alex Salmond, rather than anybody else in the mainstream who were not necessarily critical of the prosecution, but in some cases did publish, so-called, what could be argued as jigsaw identification, and the fact that he has a long and distinguished career, both as a diplomat and then eventually as a whistleblower, as it pertains to the covering up of torture by the British state, torture by the Uzbek state, um, uh, where he was ambassador on behalf of the British government, but the British government was covering it up, and also for his outspoken support for Julian Assange.
They
And
actually
the
cite
case.
that. That was what I was gonna.
Yeah.
One of the things I was gonna say is they cite Craig's coverage of Julian's court case and why he's such a prolific journalist and should be prosecuted in the indictment that they put out against him. But a
Yeah,
question
and just to hold on, Andrew, just to be clear, Craig Murray did put out a tweet that it is Sunday. So he said, "I have to hand myself into St. Leonard's Police Station, Edinburgh, on Sunday morning to go to jail. I don't want it to be sad, and I should be delighted if anyone wants to come along with a little snack brunch or a glass of bubbly to toast me off. St. Leonard's Police Station, 10:30 a.m." So that's tomorrow.
Oh, let me see.
does he have any other process for appeal? Like, is there another
Or is it over?
Yeah, is there like another mechanism to get this overturned, even if he is, in jail while it happens or some years out? Is there another mechanism that he could lever to get these charges removed from his record or from the court record in general?
So I do know that they want to look to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights, right? The court of last resort, on matters pertaining to human rights, but it could take a while. I mean, he will have served his sentence perhaps before even they file,
Mm-hmm.
or so it would be to challenge, obviously you can't undo time that you've spent in incarceration, but you could potentially be awarded some form of financial compensation. But it's difficult because it's not like, you're going to have to argue that there are minimum standards that were violated.
Mm-hmm.
And the courts, contrary to popular myth, they do afford, a degree of flexibility for states to implement the rules. But so it's about, basically, are these laws or rules within the parameters, the range of acceptable parameters? Did you fall so low as to violate this person's right to due process? So it might be about, when it comes to like excessive ambiguity in the law or something like that, might be, maybe they'll also appeal the proportionality aspect of it, but you could see the court saying, well, hey, look, we need to be able to protect the identities of alleged victims in rape cases, so it's important for a deterrence factor. So I could see a court agreeing with that, but perhaps not agreeing with the test itself. The fact that it was you can't say it was clear what the jigsaw identification test is, and the fact that there's so few cases as it pertains to jigsaw identification further substantiates that. So they could say that that you're applying a law that was not clear and precise, and there is case law, human rights case law, that says that people should know what the rules are if you're going to hold them, or they should be capable of knowing precisely what they are if you're going to be held accountable under them. So I know there'll be people out there who are not sympathetic. They'll say, well, why do you publish anything? I think people forget the fact that it's investigations and covering of trials have also led to the later discovery of witnesses lying and things like that, right? And it's not just about,
I
we
mean,
shouldn't just,
Julian's case is a perfect example with what happened with Teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Siggy Thordenson, they buried the name. They called him Teenager instead of referring to him in any material as Sigurdor Thordenson. They leave
yeah,
off
and
that
he's
he
not
was
even a
a paid
teenager.
FBI informant, that he took $50,000. So the ability to protect witnesses by a government's honestly, in my opinion, more dangerous because they can
Mm-hmm.
hide a serial pedophile that was involved with underage boys multiple times that got immunity from the U.S. government. That's now a star witness in a case that has since recanted.
Yeah,
Um,
and well, in that case in particular, because why are you protecting his identity? There is an argument, and I can see both sides of the argument. My instincts are on the side of the defense, but that's just my instincts because of my background, right, and the types of law that I worked on, etc. But in the Thordenson case, why would he even need his identity to be protected? It's not like Julian Assange is accused of being some kind of assassin or something. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, why would it need to be protected other than the fact that you want to hide from the court, from the British court, and from the wider public, the fact that one of your star witnesses in your expanded key conspiracy charge is a convicted serial fraudster, a child sex offender, embezzler, etc. Somebody who has convictions that relate to honesty as well, right? So crimes of dishonesty, right? Fraud and embezzlement, and I don't know, I can't recall if identity theft was one of them, but certainly the others, and multiple offenses against children, deceiving minors into sexual relations or sexual acts or what have you. So yes, so that's one of the reasons why I think people need to understand how serious this is. That like it was just a very strange, you know, on. Is that coming from you guys or from me? Oh, is it?
What's coming from us? My kid's yelling. Maybe that's
Oh,
is that
the
what you're talking
kids. Okay,
about?
yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
my
I don't
kid's yelling right
because it could have been a kid
now.
outside as well. So I don't know because
No, it's my kid yelling.
my mic picks up a lot. So
Mine does too. I get it.
so so yeah, so that's the situation. If people want to know the kind of the details, they should. The Dissenter has published a number of good articles on it. Uh, well, I say that realizing that I've written one of those articles, so that might not sound humble, but like there's my article which goes into detail. It's worth reading, right? Because I go into detail of the background, so you can pick up quite a lot about what's going on there. And then there's the most recent one that just looks at the Supreme Court's refusal to hear the case. But if you go to the previous one, which came out, when was that, in May? Craig Murray has it pinned still to the profile of his Twitter account.
Yes.
So you'll see it there. It's called whistleblower Craig Murray sentenced to 8 months in prison over his reporting on former Scottish First Minister's trial. And just so people know, obviously there's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, but the other nations or countries of the UK have devolved powers, and they have their own governments which can pass legislation for their own country. So Scotland has its own executive and legislator, and its own, not prime minister, it's called first minister. So it's very powerful within the it within, think of it almost like a governor, I suppose, but this is of a country within a kingdom, if you like. So and of course this is also centers around topics of the push towards independence, in Scotland.
Yes.
There's a split in the Scottish National Party between those who think that Nicola Sturgeon is going too slowly with that push, uh, and those who don't, those who support her. And Alex Salmond, who was the former First Minister, and became more and more critical of Nicola Sturgeon because he felt that she was going too slowly. And I think there's other critiques and splits as well. And so Craig Murray seems to have been caught up in that. That because he was quite supportive of Alex Salmond, and he was openly critical of what appeared to be, I won't say appeared to be, but I will say it is evidence that leads one to believe that there is conspiracy or collusion between high-ranking bureaucratic officials, civil servants, members of the Scottish National Party, and sort of creating or initiating the prosecution against Alex Salmond. And it was Craig Murray sort of writing about this, that in a way that others didn't, that I think brought his attention as well to the Scottish government. So and I wasn't there. Like, I can't say like all these women lied or what have you. We can say that Alex Salmond was acquitted on all charges, and we can say there's definitely evidence that there was political motivations and people being involved in pushing this prosecution, to the extent that it may well not have happened had it not been from sort of what looks like a conspiracy. And
well, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time that those kinds of accusations would be used against somebody in power, as like a politically motivated attack. This happens all the time. It's something that is a very effective accusation to put out there. It's very difficult to defend against. It's incredibly difficult to defend against.
And it has like long-term smearing consequences, even if you're found not guilty, right?
Yes, you're tainted. You have that shadow, that cloud hanging over your head, that there are going to be some people that once you're accused of something like that, they will believe it about you forever.
Yeah. So that is the wider context in which Craig Murray then finds himself being charged for violating contempt of court. It's important to note that two of the other key charges, I mean, which was so bad that when I had predicted, I don't know who I was speaking to, but I had predicted that if he was going to face the possibility of conviction, that it would just be on one of the charges and not the other two. And that's what ended up happening, because the other two I thought were just so weak. I could see a court convicting him on one because, like we say, the law is ambiguous. You could go either way. But on the other two charges, basically saying that he'd published material which was likely to prejudice a jury, right? You don't have to establish that you have influenced a jury member. How are you even going to do that necessarily? But that you don't have this issue in the States. But here, once the proceedings have begun, and that could even technically relate to being arrested. I can't recall. I should know this because as a journalist, I need to know, right? You can't report in a certain way if it could prejudice a jury. Typically, if it could prejudice a jury towards conviction, but in reality, it's either way in terms of how the courts would interpret it. So you have to be careful about what you publish, because it's down to the jury supposed to be making its decision based on the evidence that's presented before it. And they were arguing that these two articles that he wrote, one 11 months before the trial began and one 7 months before the trial began, violated this rule. But the issue was they only brought the contempt of court petition, the prosecution, after the trial was over. So what was in my mind and was in the defense argument, right, and was also the judges accepted, was, sorry, if you thought that you saw these articles. Yes, we saw the articles. Okay, so then why didn't you bring them to the attention of the judge at the time to say, hey, can you get this? Can you instruct this journalist or blogger to take down the article? And the prosecutor actually said, well, our department was aware of it and we considered it and we ultimately decided to reject doing so. So it's like, okay, but now you're saying he violated contempt. And bear in mind, the jury hadn't even been impaneled. We're talking about 7 months.
Wouldn't that put them in contempt of their own law? If they had this and they knew that it was jigsaw
and didn't have it taken down,
wouldn't not acting on it then put those people in contempt?
No, because they didn't publish it, right? It's about publishing material.
Yeah.
So ultimately the court rejected the argument that said whether or not these articles could be said to prejudice a jury, which even that I find frightening. So like, okay, so they're saying the fact that he didn't take it down when the jury was impaneled or whatever. It's like, well, look, you saw that when it got up, you could have raised the issue. You didn't raise the issue. So you're effectively time barred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not by explicit statute, but by like precedent and by, reasonableness and fairness, right? So you're time barred. You can't raise it now when you didn't raise it at the time. And whether or not they could or could not be interpreted as potentially prejudicing a jury, we won't even consider, because you're, like I said, you're prevented from raising this. And then there was another ground, but I can't actually remember it off the top of my head, which was also dismissed. So it fell down onto the jigsaw identification contempt of court charge, for which he was found guilty in relation to at least some of the witnesses. But yeah, it is problematic because the senior judge in the trial was also the trial judge. So she's the second most senior judge in Scotland, and she was the key judge in Craig Murray's trial. There were two other judges, but they didn't ask any questions. So obviously they're letting her take the role, and then they all discuss it afterwards. But she also oversaw Alex Salmon's trial, right? Which means that she's already aware of the identities of the protected witnesses. So now
Mm-hmm.
when you're reading material to see whether or not this could lead to jigsaw identification, you already have in your mind the identities. It's easier to say, like, yes, this does lead to them, because you
And
already
it
know
seems
the
like a
difference.
huge conflict of interest to be involved in both trials, which is something we saw in the Julian Assange case with Lady Arbuthnot. Like, she had a lot of conflict of interest, financial conflicts of interest, which I found interesting, and wouldn't recuse herself.
Familial or via her son and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
interestingly enough, when Declassified UK started to reveal this, she did end up. I mean, there is no proven causal link; it's just correlation, right? But she then ended up assigning Baratzer to the trial, whereas she could have just continued on with it. Although
Mm-hmm.
I did have someone ironically suggest to me that because of her establishment credentials, it might actually have been easier for someone like Lady Arbuthnot, who's already, if you like, essentially like made it, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
as well, to find to rule against extradition. You know what I mean?
True,
So
because she's
some
already established and isn't worried about pleasing people as much
yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, and if you're connected and you're networked and all the rest of it, and you think for whatever reason it might be a bad idea for him to be extradited, maybe bad for the image of Britain or whatever like that, maybe it's also easier for you to not feel that pressure. You know how they say sometimes a Republican could get certain things done, like
Mm-hmm.
Nixon went to China in a way that a Democrat might not have been able to, because they would have been smeared as succumbing to like leftists or socialists
Yeah,
or what have
communists,
you,
commie
communists.
bastards.
So, but anyway, that's we're going into was it hypothesizing. So that was just a comment that somebody with
No, that
many
makes
years of
sense.
experience
Yeah,
in as a practicing lawyer here had raised that to me.
that definitely makes
Um,
sense.
there is a logic to it, but in the end, Baratzer did rule against extradition, if not only on health grounds, but that
Yeah.
is still significant.
And now we
So
have August 11th. We have the next for Assange. I don't want to get too far off of Craig Murray, but yeah, that's coming up. But so the whole Craig Murray thing, this seems to be like another, just in the continue. Like I said at the top of the show, this is like a continuation on the attacks on journalism. And y'all just had recently, what is it, the Official Secrets Act or whatever? They're like trying to change that, which then puts journalists at risk of being put in jail for 14 years. Is it like literally just for embarrassing the government? Is that what I read?
Yeah.
Because that seems really intense.
And it's in response to, there was a, I believe it was an MP or like a cabinet member, that was like one of the big like maskers, like you have to stay away from your family, you have to lock down, you can't be around anybody, and he was caught on video making out
Oh.
with, and I don't know if there was more, but in public buildings and public spaces owned by the people of London got caught violating his own anti-masks and anti-distancing policies and
Awkward.
shit. Right. So logically, in response to that, you just pass laws that say you can't do that anymore and you can't embarrass
That's
government officials.
terrifying. Is that legit what it is, Mo? Because I've like read a bit about it, but I haven't really educated myself, the way that I should. But is that really what they're talking about doing? 14 years for just embarrassing government?
Well, I don't think it will be worded like that. There is an Official Secrets Act already, and it is draconian already, and you can already be prosecuted as a journalist, even though it's been a long time since they've done it. So
Hmm.
in theory, I could be prosecuted for republishing. I could be prosecuted not just for publishing what a source gives me, but republishing what a source gives you and is already in the public domain, right? So,
Wow.
and originally, when this law was passed, and there were, it had to pertain to A, B, and C, right? When the law was originally passed, the original version of it, there was lots of pushback against it. So, what they ended up introducing was a public interest defense, right? So, there is an Official Secrets Act, but if you leak or you publish and you're prosecuted, you can raise the fact that this was in the public interest to do so and potentially be found not guilty, which could also be a basis that could deter prosecutions, but at least you're giving that is a real safeguard.
Yes, we don't have that here.
After although
No.
technically you do not have an Official Secrets Act though. So
Right.
journalists can't necessarily be published simply for publishing government secrets, although government workers do sign something that
Non-disclosure agreements,
which then
NDAs.
prevents them to from publishing, and then what ends up happening, you get charged with the Espionage Act, which is outrageous because that's not really espionage, but if you're just leaking information to a journalist, right, rather than spying on behalf of a foreign government. But anyway, after this was successfully used, they a future government, right? This is years later, decades later, in fact, there was a successful use of the public interest defense. And there was another case that fell apart, I think, because the government believed that a public interest defense would be successfully be able to use. So they just got rid of it. It's one of those things like so there is no more public interest defense. So you still have the draconian rules, just without the public interest defense. So there's literally no defense, just like what Julian Assange would face if he was in trial in the
Hmm.
United States under the Espionage Act. There is no defense. You can't raise a defense. All it
No.
is like, did you publish these documents? Yes, I did. Oh, okay, well you're guilty. That's 10 years. How about this charge? Yes. Oh, well then that's 10 years. Right? And then they just rack up.
It turns into to the traffic court here in the U.S. Like, were you going faster than this? Okay, you are guilty. No,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's strict liability. It doesn't matter if like, oh, well, because then you'll have people saying, I mean, at least with traffic, you could say like, well, then everybody would say, oh, well, I thought it was 30 miles. I didn't realize it was 40
Hmm.
miles or whatever. And then you would never be able to enforce traffic laws, and then you'd have even higher rates of accident. But with this, with alleged espionage or publishing of government secrets, surely that your intent matters. It should matter,
Absolutely. It
right?
should. It
Right. So
absolutely should.
I mean, it does in other very serious things that can result you in being locked up for decades, right? Like in speeding doesn't cost
Hell,
you
even in
your
murder
liberty.
trials,
Yeah, of course.
your intent matters. If you're a victim of abuse, if you're a domestic violence survivor and your husband's been beating you for 20 years, and all of a sudden are getting beaten within an inch of your life, and you decide to shoot him and he dies, you can use that in your defense.
Yeah, that's
You know,
difficult though. Spousal abuse
it
syndrome
is.
is difficult to get in practice. But also your intent matters because if it was self-defense, then it's not murder,
Hmm.
right? Or it could drop down a murder charge to a manslaughter charge, right?
Hmm.
Depending, or criminally negligent homicide, right? So context should matter, and your intent should matter, and what a reasonable person might think in that situation, et cetera, et cetera. There's a very famous test in law is the reasonable man test, or though now they probably call it the reasonable person test. Uh, fair enough. It's just that political correctness, but if I was a woman and everything's always about the reasonable man, you know. but
So I know we
that's
have a limited
that year
time
as
with you,
well.
Mo, and I don't want to
Yeah,
keep you more than we can.
yeah.
Um, but so if you could give people some final thoughts on everything with Craig Murray's situation and Julian's, and let people know where they can find you and your work.
Sure. So people can find, well, Craig Murray, we'll just have to wait and see. I think once we find out what prison it is for certain, then we'll see if we can write him letters at least, because I know he told me he can't bring books, and writing will be difficult. He's going to find out what the library situation is there, which is too bad that they have a bar on bringing books there, because I don't know that that's the case in England. But so it'd be nice to be supportive, I suppose, to be able to see from there, to at least while he's away from family in what is not a very nice place, to have to be connected to the outside world. For 4 months may not seem like a long time, but even a few days, if you feel isolated or what have you, can get into somebody's head. So human connection is important. Julian Assange on I believe it's the 11th, the High Court. Is it the High Court or the Court of Appeal? Let's just say for now it's the High Court. We'll be hearing an argument from the U.S. government as to why. So the U.S. government appealed on a number of grounds, the refusal to extradite Julian Assange. The High Court agreed to hear 3 out of 5 of their grounds and dismissed the other 2. I think it was, or 2 out of 5 and dismissed the other 3. I can't recall. And they are going to set a date so that we can then hear those grounds. But I think the U.S. government is trying to get the court to agree to reconsider the other ones that they dismissed. So we're going to see what happens on the 11th with that. And then people can find me at Elmaazi on Twitter. M for Mohammed, Elmaazi is my last name on Twitter. And I currently am publishing with Electronic Intifada, The Dissenter, and The Canary, although it's been a while. So hopefully there'll be some upcoming pieces there shortly.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on. If you guys haven't seen it yet, we talked to Mo yesterday on Facts on the Ground too, so you guys can check that out as well. But yeah, thanks for all your work and for covering this and for coming on to talk about it, because unfortunately not a lot of people are. So yeah, we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Okay.
So,
It's always good to talk to Mo.
right? I love him. We haven't had Mo on in a little while.
I know. He apologized yesterday and said, I'm sorry, I haven't been, very available. He had stuff going on. I didn't ask him what. It's not my business. But yeah, it was really good to talk to him. Jesse and I were speaking, and you and I actually, sometimes I forget what I talk about with which co-host. So if I ever repeat things, that's why, because it's confusing.
We both have long dark hair and beards, so I understand.
Yes. Well, literally, like, everybody has a beard. Did I tell you that? My kid asked me if everybody I know that's a boy has a beard. I'm like, pretty much.
If that yes. Can be my contribution to the world, I'll take it.
Yes, but we were talking about who that we could get on to talk about Craig Murray, who would be like a good resource. And Mo is excellent at this stuff, because not only is he an incredible journalist and writer, but he's also an attorney. And so, and anything to deal with like the court process in the UK or in Scotland, which we know some about because of Julian Assange, but are far from experts. It's always nice to have somebody like him who knows what he's talking about and can explain things. And he honestly is excellent at explaining things so that people can understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's very good at taking complex legal issues and explaining them in a way that makes it very easy to grasp. So I appreciate him very much. He's great. Y'all should support his work. Support independent journalism, please. Please and thank you. And Kat said that my microphone level is so much louder than everybody else's, and I'm not convinced that that's just not because I'm louder than everybody else.
I control. Okay. I don't control people's volumes independently. I just control my volume, and then everyone else is separate. So if it's
I didn't know if it was just because I'm loud, or if it was just because my microphone is very touchy or whatever.
No,
but Kat, I'm sorry.
That's me.
I'm sorry, Kat.
In the description, and I posted the link, I'll put it in there again. We have officially launched our fundraiser for September.
Yay!
If you could help us out, pretty cool weekend planned. It's going to be the 10th, 11th, and 12th. On the 10th, we are doing almost like a pregame kind of thing, because it's Friday. Our big rally is on Saturday. So we're going to meet up in that same area right by the Washington Monument for basically just like a powwow kind of picnic, flyer distribution, hanging up posters, those kinds of things. So really looking forward to that. That's the first time we tried to do like an organized pre-event event. So I think that'll go a long way to getting people to turn out.
I like calling it a pregame.
Right, right. Literally going out and passing out flyers for our event the day before, which kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense, and I don't know why we don't do that. I've thought about that a million times.
Because
Still,
we're moving
done.
like a million miles an hour.
I
90%
know.
of the time.
I know.
But so that's Friday. Saturday we're doing a big rally in Lafayette Park. We're getting the permits and everything turned in to get that approved. We should be getting a stage, rental equipment, a bunch of other stuff. We're planning about 5 hours of speakers outside of the White House, so that's going to be fucking awesome. And then probably marches and everything in between just to keep people entertained and occupied during that time. But Sunday, we're still working on figuring that out. We might do something really cool. I got a plan, but I gotta see if other people want to get involved in it because I don't ask anyone to.
Well, this
trust
is
me.
during the in the war stuff, right?
Right.
The in the
right.
war
This
protest.
is,
So there's
this
gonna
is free Assange and the damn wars and fuck censorship.
Yes.
And we've been talking with Kara Castronova to get ending political persecutions involved too.
Nice. See, this is how we do it. Build coalitions between movements, get together, work together, and fight for things that we all agree on. This is how we do it.
Mm-hmm. So
my kid loves that song.
If you could, please donate. The link should be in the description, or I'll throw it into chat again for everyone. If you cannot, please help us share, because it really does go a long way just getting more eyes on it. Invite everyone that you can. Try to plan carpools to DC if you can for this. I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be a big time. So that's and the damn wars.
Get together and share costs. Like, share your Airbnb costs, share gas costs and all of that stuff, and see if you can get there. I know everybody is in it's like a really difficult time for everybody. But the more people that we can get out there, obviously, the better. Like, we need to start getting extremely loud about these things and be present.
People in the if you're interested in organizing with us, because it's more than just, hey, turn out if you can. If you want to organize alongside us, please feel free to jump into Discord and give us a shout out, and we'll pull you into the groups. We normally do meetings on Monday nights.
Yeah, and if you're organizing for an issue that you think would be a good collaborative effort, let us know. We're always down to work with other groups that, have similar things that they're working on. So let us know.
Yeah, because we have Daniel Hale in the area too. He'll be in the Alexandria Detention Center, which is, we all know.
Will
how
he still be? Wait, will he be? Is that where he's going?
I don't know
because
if he's been transferred yet. That's where he was held.
In 2 weeks. He's only going to be there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
The Daniel Hale support team, the Twitter page, said that they gave out the address, and they said if you're going to write to him, make sure you do it quickly, because within 2 weeks he's going to be moving to a different location.
Okay.
So, and we don't know where he's going yet. So we talked to Kevin Costola, and they have no idea where they're going to be putting him. For example, John Ariaki was in Pennsylvania somewhere. And they typically they ask the defendant, where would you like to stay in this area? And I don't know how much weight what the person wants actually has. But Daniel Hale did say that he would like to stay in the DC area. So I know he has family and stuff in Tennessee, I think. But he did ask to stay in the DC area. So he may potentially be somewhere near there, but we don't know where he's going to be yet. And by the way, his birthday's tomorrow. So
write him a letter if you can.
Write him a letter if you can. If you send it by Monday, Tuesday, it will probably get to him in time. I wouldn't push it too much farther past that, because I don't know, because getting mail in jail is hard anyways, because they have to go through it and all that stuff. So, but yeah, maybe if we can get a tweet storm going again tomorrow for his birthday or something. This week has been bullshit. Like, we had Daniel Hale sentenced to almost 4 years in prison. Craig Murray's going to jail. It was National Whistleblower Day yesterday, which is fucking stupid in this country.
The joy of living in the American empire and the
Oh, by the way, so we've talked about doing like a whole history of whistleblowers type thing. You and I put out a thread about it yesterday, and just
do you want to go
like
through that? Because I thought that was really cool.
We can, yeah. I love talking about it. Like, I'm a big history nerd, so I get really excited about history and historical stuff. It's going to take me forever to find it.
It'll be a good lighter topic before we get back into Craig Murray.
I could probably do it from memory. I can do it from memory. Or do you want me to pull it? I could pull it up so people can read along.
I gotta hop off screen for a second.
Oh, you do this to me all the goddamn time, Andrew. I have the worst co-host.
I know, I'm terrible.
Okay, you are always leaving me. Christ, man. All right, I tweet too much, so it's going to take me a while to scroll down here and find it. Oh, here we go. Oh, didn't take me that long. Okay, so I do tweet too much, fams. Okay. I am sharing my screen now. Okay, so I just said it's Whistleblower Day in the US, which is kind of ridiculous given the shitty way that we treat whistleblowers. But here's a little history lesson about the first whistleblowers in this country who are the reason we celebrate this day. So in 1777, mere months after signing the Declaration of Independence, I think it was like 7 months after, there were 10 American sailors aboard the USS Warren, which signed a petition to the Continental Congress regarding their commanding officer, Commodore Essex Hopkins. And this guy was a douchebag. Like, he really wasn't very popular at all anyways. He was known for being like just really insubordinate, not following orders, being like really hot tempered, like just a douche canoe, right? But he was very well connected, which I go on to speak about here. So Hopkins had long been known for being insubordinate and quick tempered, but was extremely well connected. His brother was Stephen Hopkins, former Rhode Island governor, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and member of the Continental Congress. The letter signed by the 10 sailors led by Samuel Shaw and Richard Marvin detailed the Commodore's misconduct and poor character and included examples of British prisoners of war being tortured at his behest. Captain John Grannis took the risk of abandoning his post aboard the Warren as it was anchored near Providence and rode to Philadelphia to deliver the petition himself. Hopkins was suspended immediately and then relieved of his command on January 2nd, 1778. This prompted him to retaliate, filing a criminal libel suit against the 10 signers, which led to the arrest and jailing of Marvin and Shaw. And then I should point out, I didn't put this in there, but in 1778, if a criminal libel suit was filed against you, you were immediately jailed. There was no, like now there would be, discovery and all that stuff, and you probably wouldn't go to jail right away. Back then you would. The two men appealed to the Continental Congress for help writing. The two men appealed to the Continental Congress for help, writing that they had been, quote, arrested for doing what they then believed and still believe was nothing but their duty, end quote. Soon after, on July 30th, a resolution and the country's first whistleblower protection was approved unanimously. It said, in part, quote, it is the duty of all persons in the service of the United States, as well as all other inhabitants thereof, to give the earliest information to Congress or any other proper authority of any misconduct, frauds, or misdemeanors committed by any officers or persons in the service of these states, which may come to their knowledge, end quote. The Continental Congress also agreed to fund the defense of the two men in the libel case to the tune of $1,418. Marvin and Shaw were victorious in court. And that's the abbreviated tale of our first ever whistleblowers in the United States. It saddens me to see how far we've strayed from this initial strong defense and appreciation of those willing to speak out against injustice. We should really try to get back to that. And then this is a copy of the letter, which is, impossible to read, but that's a copy of the letter. There were 10 signers. And yeah, that's it.
Think about how far we've fallen, right? Scroll up a little bit on that real quick before you drop off.
Hold on. I just
Because you had that one tweet outlining what Congress said is the duty of all Americans.
I'll read it again.
Yeah.
Quote, it is the duty of all persons in the service of the United States, as well as all other inhabitants thereof, to give the earliest information to Congress or any other proper authority of any misconduct, frauds, or misdemeanors committed by any officers or persons in the service of these states, which may come to their knowledge, end quote. And that's we don't do that anymore. I mean, and this wasn't even like a question. The Continental Congress immediately supported these men. And at the time, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the closest thing we even have to anything like that today is Mike Gravel, and he just recently passed with the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah, and the Continental Congress agreeing to fund their defense at the time, they didn't have any money. Like, we were broke. We were a brand new country. Like, we didn't have shit, right? But it was an immediate, we will pay for your defense. We will support you. And then the whistleblower protection that the resolution that they signed, which was signed on July 30th. That is why July 30th is National Whistleblower Day. That was signed without dissent. There was nobody who spoke against it. And here we are today.
And
we just sentenced a whistleblower to 4 years in prison.
Right? Someone who literally came out, said it was his duty to do this, and that he was
one of the most important whistleblowers in history. This is somebody who exposed the drone program, literal murder. This is murder.
High-tech murder, like
high tech
science,
murder.
like
Yes, like baseball cards. We're gonna, play games with people's lives, and we're gonna decide who lives and who dies, and then we're gonna send some, flunky with a joystick to go murder somebody with a drone strike. That's what he exposed. I mean, seriously, all whistleblowers are extremely important in my opinion, but Daniel Hale is one of the most important whistleblowers in history, I think.
absolutely, especially for the nature of the changes in war that he was a part of and then blew the whistle on. And
Yes,
big
because I
shout
think
out
that's.
to
Go ahead.
the DC crew, our DC Metro
Yes.
friends, Jordan, Josh, and all them out there.
And Franco went out.
Yep, they held a rally outside the Department of Justice yesterday for Julian and for
And shout out to
National
Randy
Whistleblower Day.
Credico, who did, I think, 2 or 3 other days of events. I think he did on Tuesday when Daniel Hale was sentenced. He was there. Then he did 2 days of events for Julian Assange outside of the Department of Justice. But he was just, the heat, the humidity had gotten to him, so he wasn't able to make it yesterday. But he was still out there all week busting his ass. So shout out to Randy Credico as well. But yeah, this is we've really fallen so far. Daniel Hale should be celebrated. There should be statues. I'm not a fan of statues. Fuck your statues. But if we're gonna have statues,
that's all, right?
Yeah,
we have to.
But statues are expensive.
Yeah, no, I know. It was.
They're really expensive. Trust me, I looked into it. I'm like, what would it take to get an Assange statue?
Getting 300 pounds of copper or brass or anything is not cheap.
Yeah. True story. So yeah, but we talked about this the other day. What is going to be in the future seen as one of the most important aspects of what Daniel Hale revealed is what you just talked about, that change in war. Because I think moving to drone warfare does many things, but I think, and there's nothing humane about war, but I think it really does strip the rest of like the humanity aspect. It's not, and Daniel has spoken about this, it's not, standing face to face with an enemy and having to make the decision to shoot them anymore. It's literally like playing a video game. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to see what you're doing.
This is after the Pentagon, right, has spent years funding companies like Blizzard and Activision and Treyarch to make games like Call of Duty. Like, I'm a gamer. Like, please don't take this the wrong way. But when there is the military-industrial complex personally involved in helping studios create video games specifically about the way wars are fought now, that's a fucking problem. When
they're training future psychopaths
are being disclosed to the public through a video game, that's fucked.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I mean, we've fallen a really far way from 1777 in our initial support and defense of whistleblowers. And that's really sad. And I wish that, more people would, it's a lot to do with the propaganda that's been leveled against whistleblowers and the use of the Espionage Act, the invention of the Espionage Act, the way that it's been misused and abused. But we can get back there. It's going to take a lot of work, but we can get back there.
Do we want to, can I do some Craig Murray stuff?
Yes, I would love to do some more Craig Murray stuff.
Let's do some more Craig Murray stuff. So we got 2 pieces put together here. One of them is just the post that Craig Murray put out yesterday onto his blog. It's a statement from his wife. The other one, which is the longer one, is showing how Craig Murray's case escalated as the UC Global case in Spain escalated. So I will get it all kicked off here real quick. I'll share the links with everybody too. I just got to turn it into the right view. Cool. Click, 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 click. Craig Murray going dark. Let me make sure I'm not muted. Craig Murray going dark. Right? That would have been terrible. This blog will be going dark for a few months. The Queen kindly paid for my dinners for over 20 years while I was a British diplomat and ambassador, and now she is going to pay for my dinners again. This is very kind. I thought she had forgotten about me.
I love his humor.
I love it.
I love it. He's getting ready to go to prison, y'all, and look at him. I love it.
This is a statement from his wife in regards to all this. Today is the most heartbreaking day. My husband, whose health has been found to be not suitable for prison, must hand himself in for detention within hours following the UK Supreme Court's decision not to hear his appeal. We were extremely hopeful that the Supreme Court would hear his case, and no doubt that this particular case should have been heard given the importance and relevance in the context of the freedom of speech in the UK. Instead, the Supreme Court declined to hear it. Yet again, my heart is deeply saddened to find that the UK, once a country which placed great importance on human rights issues, has failed to listen to my husband's case. Additionally, the Scottish court outright dismissed Craig's poor health, having been made aware through a mandatory social work report and the doctor's reports that his well-being would be at risk if forced to go to jail. At first, I tried to come to terms on him being jailed in the hopes that he would be granted a dignified condition in jail, but I am saddened and shocked to learn that he could be placed among criminals with no ability to bring books or enable him to write, with no entertainment allowed. He is being treated like a criminal. This is not just punishment. This is a deliberate attempt to break the spirit of anyone brave enough to make use of free speech. Given a pen and paper, what would you do? You write in your own voice, speaking the truth. You have been with Craig for 2 decades, and he has always, having been with Craig for 2 decades, he has always spent his time and energy highlighting injustices and standing up for what is right, carefully, considerately, and consistently. I was brought up during the Soviet times and post-independence in my own country, Uzbekistan. I have witnessed and personally experienced myself what the price of freedom of speech truly is. Opponents were disappeared, or it was claimed that they had taken their own life or had been locked up in asylums. I am filled with fear. This pattern is now repeating itself in the UK. It is appalling to see Craig going through the same treatment in a so-called human rights respecting country. This is an attack on truth tellers. His writings are those of highly qualified journalists, human rights activists, former rector of Duny University, and former British ambassador. To us, his family, the situation is devastating. I am left with my 5-month-old baby, yet to find a good way to explain Craig's jail sentence to his confused and anxious 12-year-old son. Of any readers concerned with the loss of freedom of speech and equality before the law, I ask that you show active and outspoken solidarity with my partner. That's how far the UK has fallen, that a former diplomat's wife has to put out a cry for help because the freedom of speech has just fallen that much. Like, literally comparing it to Uzbekistan, the country where her husband blew the whistle for the torture programs that they were running.
Yes. Oh, and also, if you are a current subscriber to Craig's blog at craigmurray.org, please remain one. If you're not a subscriber to Craig Murray's blog at craigmurray.org, maybe consider becoming one. That is a huge part of their income. And while he's in prison, he's very worried he's going to lose all of that and lose readers and subscribers. And so we need to support him. And I think that would help in taking some of the stress off of him if he knows that people aren't going to abandon him at this time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you're not subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. Or you can also make single donations. I think he's got like a PayPal and he's got Bitcoin and all that stuff. You can find all of his donation information. He said subscriptions are obviously better because that's, a regular steady income, but he also understands that a lot of people can't or don't want to commit to something like that. So if you can donate to him, maybe do that. Or if you are comfortable becoming a subscriber and that's something that you want to do, maybe do that as well. Because I think that would help take some of the stress off of him while he's doing the 4 months or whatever it's going to be, 4-8 months, whatever it is. I think it would be helpful to take. He's not in great health anyways. So I think alleviating some stress would do like a world of good.
And if you can join him, bring some scotch, bring some bubbly.
Yeah. If you're in London, what is almost spilled my water? What did I say? The Saint?
I don't know where it's at, but it was at 10:30 in the morning. Which
10:30. They're doing like a send off.
4:30.
Hold on. Let me scroll down here. St. Leonard's Police Station at 10:30. So if you're in the area in Edinburgh, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I know the Scots get really pissed if you say their shit wrong. So if you're Scottish, please don't hate me.
Well, they
I
need
don't know.
less vowels.
They do. Listen, I'm a dumb American.
That's like our whole MO.
Yeah, I'm just a dumb American. So, and also, I just want to point out that if you go to Craig Murray's Twitter page, dude is regularly tweeting about Daniel Hale and Julian Assange, and he very rarely worries about himself.
Even as his court case was ramping up, he said, "Do not donate to me. Please continue to support Julian."
Yes, that's the kind of guy we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So we need to support him too. He would not have any of it. You know what I mean? Like he would probably say there are other people that need our support, but we can support all of them. You know, spread the love.
So I'm gonna jump over into this because it's exciting, or as exciting as it can be, I guess. So this is a whole bunch of different articles that I put together, just outlining the case of what was going on with Craig Murray in relationship to his involvement in not only the UC Global situation, but also the Mueller report, which most people don't know about. So, surrendering himself for prison. In the case of the United Kingdom diplomat turned whistleblower Craig Murray, the UK Supreme Court has refused to hear Murray's appeal. He will now surrender himself to the police for an 8-month prison sentence. The High Court in Edinburgh, Scotland, convicted Murray of contempt on March 25th after concluding that he published several blog posts which they believe led to the identity of witnesses in a sexual harassment trial against former Scottish Minister Alex Salmond, even though they never actually showed any witnesses were identified and have no means or requirement to prove it. Murray is the first person in the UK to be incarcerated for media contempt in over half a century. It has been 70 years since someone was incarcerated in Scotland on this charge. I go to jail with a clean conscience after a Kafkaesque trial, Murray declared in a press statement. I genuinely do not know who I am supposed to have identified or which phrases published are said to have identified them in combination with details in the public domain. This judgment will have a chilling effect on reporting of defense cases on trials to the detriment of justice, and the different treatment of bloggers and approved media is sinister. And that's referring to how he was treated versus how the mainstream media in the UK was. So this is actually an article that Craig put out shortly after being found guilty over in the UK. It is not in dispute that the CIA is in possession of Julian Assange's legal and medical files seized from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, including correspondence and drafting by his lawyers on his defense against extradition to the United States on espionage charges. The defense submitted evidence of this in court after Julian was arrested in the Ecuadorian embassy and removed. All of his personal possessions were illegally seized by the Ecuadorian authorities, including his files and his IT equipment. These were then shipped back to Ecuador by diplomatic bag. They were then handed to the CIA. These facts were agreed in court in Assange's extradition hearing by U.S. authorities. However, they claimed that the proceedings were not tainted by the fact that the prosecuting state had seized the defendant's legal papers because Chinese walls within the federal government meant that the CIA would not pass any information on to the Justice Department. That's a horrifying statement from the UK court. In any court in Western jurisdiction, against any other defendant but Assange, the seizure of the defense's legal files by the state seeking extradition would itself be sufficient to immediately be thrown out as hopelessly tainted. That is, without adding the fact that the CIA also secretly video recorded Assange through the UC Global security firm and was specifically recording his meetings with his lawyers. As it happened, UC Global also recorded for the CIA several of my own meetings with Julian, and I shall next month be traveling to Madrid to give evidence in a criminal trial of David Morales, CEO of UC Global, for illegally spying. UC Global is a Spanish company. At least I shall be if I am not in prison myself as a result of the suppression of my own reporting of the defense of Alex Salmon's case. So,
Yeah, Craig was not allowed to go to testify in that.
yeah. It was
Which
actually,
is, listen, I'm not gonna, I'm like not, I don't have my tinfoil hat, but that seems pretty convenient. I'm just saying. I'm just
especially
saying.
after being cited as a journalist of merit in Julian's case as to why the Alex
Yes.
Salmon case should proceed.
I mean, come on. It's obviously very connected. All of this stuff is very connected. The reason why Craig Murray is being targeted the way that he is, like Mo said earlier, there are other journalists in mainstream press who did very much the same thing that Craig Murray did. And the reason they're picking on Craig Murray is because he's Craig Murray and because he's friends with Julian Assange and because he has spoken out in defense of WikiLeaks. If they really wanted to make a statement with this, jigsaw identification stuff, they would have gone after somebody with a bigger name. They would have gone after somebody from one of the major networks instead of going after Craig Murray. This is a very intentional, in my opinion, this is a very intentional singling out of Craig Murray.
Yeah, I think it's a hyper focused trial, and the fucked up part is, right, there's so many goddamn layers, because the Alex Salmon case, I don't know a whole bunch about it, but just by osmosis have learned some, and it seems like he was getting put into a sexual stitch up like they try to do with people all the time. And right, that's one layer. So that whole thing happening, the CIA is now using that to try to not even try, but to block Craig from being able to testify, because this goes back to June. That article, This article was written on 4/27, so April 27th.
Yeah, this has been going on for ages.
I literally just forgot the order of my months. That was terrible.
Oh, goodness. Do you want me to start reading? Are you?
Yeah, if you want to pick this one up.
All right. Sorry, I had to wet my whistle. Okay.
Your whistle okay?
It is. Craig Murray said he has been contacted by an attorney in the spying case on Assange and that he will be going to Madrid to testify. The founder of UC Global, David Morales, was arrested over the surveillance, including privileged Assange lawyer conversations, and is on trial. Murray told former CIA analyst Ray McGovern in an email shared with Consortium News with Murray's permission that the CIA was, quote, obsessed with him. Murray told McGovern that he had offered to give evidence to special counsel Robert Mueller. Murray has said that different persons with legal access to the DNC and Podesta emails were WikiLeaks sources. Quote, I wrote to Mueller offering to give evidence, never received any reply, end quote. Murray wrote to McGovern on Wednesday, quote, never had any request for an interview by any U.S. authorities, end quote. Which this is always really fucked with me because they've never talked to Julian Assange. They've never talked to Craig Murray. Are you really actually trying to find actual legitimate evidence and the truth? Or, I mean, obviously not. Murray then wrote, quote, but I received a message from their lawyer in the case in Madrid about the spying on Assange in the embassy, contracted by the CIA, which said that I was the top target for the contractors, and the evidence shows they were obsessed with me. I shall be going to Madrid to give evidence, end quote. And then this is a tweet. It says, I was supposed to be on a plane right now flying to Madrid to give evidence for the Spanish prosecution of UC Global for spying on Assange's legal team. The Scottish court has prevented me from doing that for no good reason. My next court appearance here is 7 June. So he was supposed to go in May. His personal court case wasn't supposed to pick back up in June, and they refused to give him permission to go to Spain to testify.
And I believe he did get to testify via video link?
Via video, which is very different. I think we need to make that clear. That is a very different thing. I don't know if anybody's ever been in a courtroom or had to see a trial or maybe been on a jury or whatever. Being in a courtroom and being able to speak to a witness, see their inflection, see their all of that stuff, it's a very different animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Daryl. Okay, so, quote, from now on, we're going to be playing in the first division, end quote, Morales announced to his employees. When a coworker of UC Global asked what Morales meant, he responded that he had turned to, quote, or to the, quote, dark side, an apparent reference to U.S. intelligence services. Quote, the Americans will find us contracts around the world, end quote, Morales assured his business partner. Morales had just signed on to guard Queen Mary, the $70 million yacht belonging to one of the most high-profile casino tycoons in Vegas, ultra-Zionist billionaire billionaire and Republican mega donor Sheldon Adelson. Unfortunately for Morales, the Spanish security consultant charged with leading the spying operation, what happened in Vegas did not stay there. Morales was charged by a Spanish high court in October 2019 with violating the privacy of Assange and abusing the publisher's attorney-client privileges, as well as money laundering and bribery. The documents revealed in court, which were primarily backups from company computers, exposed the disturbing reality of his activities on, quote, the dark side.
So I put this part in here because I find it fucking hilarious. Let me take this off share real quick. I don't know where my share button went. So David Morales literally goes back after meeting with Sheldon Adelson and is bragging about this, right?
What a douche.
Right, literally, from now on, we're going to be playing in the first division. How the fuck did that work out for you? How?
Yeah.
Right? I hope playing in the first division did you a great fucking job, David Morales.
Yeah.
Because this is literally the fate of any person involved in any type of private contracting. I don't care if you're fucking Ryan Grimm and the goddamn Bellingcat. I don't care if you're Palantir. You are a disposable asset of the U.S. international global profit machine, right? You are there specifically for their whim, and when they are done with you, they will throw you the fuck away. So if you're someone involved in that kind of shit, and you think that like, oh, we're gonna work with the dark side, and it's gonna fucking work out, like, watch this case and see how the fuck it goes. Because David Morales has lost, for good reason, goddamn everything.
Yes. And I'm happy to see it.
Yeah.
Love to see it, fam. Love to see it. This is an epic level douche canoe. This is somebody who legit, I mean, he said it. We're going to go play for the dark side. Yeah, you fucking did. Like, I mean, and for what? For what, dude?
For a fucking long-ass prison stay and losing every shred of respect forever. Like,
yeah, he's done. Like, you're done, dude.
He's gonna have to go flip fucking hamburgers, and he probably won't have the balls to organize them like fucking Daniel Hale did.
If he's lucky. I mean, he's gonna be in prison for ages, hopefully. And somebody asked, it might have been Rob in the comments, if we had any updates on UC Global. I do not. Have you heard anything? Any updates on that? I know COVID fucked with it.
I was working from like 9 until almost 1 in the morning putting this together. And the latest that I could find was
September
Craig
2020
stuff in April, May. There wasn't. Craig Murray testified the beginning, middle-ish of May, end-ish of May, and there was I haven't found anything on El País or anything like that about updates from the case. That's why when I put this together, I reached back in a way that it was relevant instead of having the modern current stuff. So that's there's at least to my knowledge. If you have one, send it to me. I couldn't find one. I looked for hours.
I haven't been able to find anything either. You did give me that contact that we're going to try to get in touch with. I would like to find somebody who has.
We don't need permission because it's a Creative Commons, but I'm gonna ask. That link that I sent you, that person is the head of the Wuhaland Institute in Germany. That is literally the only way to still do a credit card donation to WikiLeaks, I believe. And they are their director, Andy something, I can't pronounce it because it's Sherman, but it goes by Andy, earlier this year did a teleconference where he literally outlined how, because of all of this, the CIA is personally targeting him. And it's honestly like not that it's funny, but he makes a lot of humorous statements and jokes, and so it was he gives a really, really good detail of how he has proven definitively that yes, he is being targeted. Here are the ways that you can tell that you're targeted technologically and in the physical world. I just think it's a really cool thing, so I'm going to see if we can play that, but also get him on as a guest, because that was awesome. Because he goes into detailing, because he was a personal friend of Julian's that went to the embassy regularly to meet with him, and outlines the escalation of what was going on with UC Global from a first-person perspective.
Yeah.
So
Jilly's in the chat. Hi, Jilly. Hi, Rob.
Actually, I'll drop that link for everybody right now. This is that video. I'm throwing it into chat for everyone if you want to watch it. It's about an hour. I thought it was super awesome. The guy has a great sense of humor. I don't want to ruin his punchline, but at one point he literally starts digging into Mike Pompeo for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
So
No, I definitely want to get somebody who's like not necessarily on the inside of the UC Global case, because that's probably going to be hard to do. But somebody that at least has direct knowledge, information,
yeah,
like
no, Andy. Hopefully, we could get him. He was a witness in the UC Global case as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely want to do that for sure.
Let me pick. I'm going back to the slides.
Oh, Mariana, I miss Mariana. Hi, Mariana, and Roar, and Jilly's high, and I'm jealous. I'm not high yet.
I am. I just don't show people. I keep it off camera.
No, I don't think anybody cares. Okay. Oh yeah. Do you want me to read? Sorry.
Yeah, I can read if you don't. There's two
Okay,
witness
whatever.
statements. You can
Okay,
take this
go
one. I'll
for it.
take the other one.
Okay. UC Global started with meager contracts, and particularly the sole contract was the one the company signed with the government of Ecuador in October 2015. The contract encompassed security services for the daughters of the then president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa. A second contract was signed soon with the government of Ecuador to provide security to the embassy of Ecuador in London. David Morales managed the company entirely on his own. In order to win the embassy security contract, Morales made payments for commissions to the SENAIN authorities, which was the entity in charge of approving the award of the security contract to a private security firm. I heard on several occasions at our offices that SENAIN, I don't know what that is,
It's
was
a
paying for
regulatory agency for Ecuadorian
no, I don't know what the
intelligence
acronym stands for.
Oh.
Is what I meant. Was paying for the services of the contract via the company located in Miami, linked to the Ecuadorian airline. Afterwards, according to David Morales, our company paid commission to a group of Ecuadorian lobbyists via tax havens located in Panama. Morales's return from Las Vegas and his comments about, quote, the big league and switching to, quote, the dark side. I learned through my conversation with David Morales that he had entered into illegal agreements with U.S. authorities to supply them with sensitive information about Mr. Assange and Rafael Correa, given that UC Global was responsible for the embassy security where Mr. Assange was located.
Just to fucking talk about this really fast, because this shows a whole bunch of shit that was going on behind the scenes. So this part here, that middle paragraph, outlines the literal money laundering scheme that Sheldon Adelson, the CIA, David Morales, and the UC Global firm set up, built around the Ecuadorian intelligence services, like literally laundering money through an Ecuadorian airline, moving it to offshore havens through Ecuadorian lobbyists. Like, just that portion is enough to put someone in jail for fucking decades, let alone the heinous violations of fucking human rights. But this slide and then the next three are direct witness statements from the UC Global case that were actually presented in Julian's trial as well. This collaboration became more concrete over time. In fact, as the U.S. elections neared towards the latter half of 2016, and especially once Trump won the election, David Morales' cooperation became absolutely clear. This reality was something that employees of UC Global openly commented and were fully aware of. Zohar, who was Adelson's head of security, even traveled to Spain and stayed at David Morales' home for a week. I began to notice that Morales' wealth increased considerably after his regular travels to the United States commenced. This led me to openly accuse him in forceful confrontation, in which I told him that a company of this nature must generate trust and cannot supply information to the other side. These arguments would end with Morales opening his shirt and saying, "I am a mercenary through and through," which he did on several occasions. Like, just the fucking...
He's such a douche, man.
Like, the fucking cartoon quality of this motherfucker, man.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, we're going to the dark side. I'm a mercenary. Like, it sounds like a fucking soundtrack to a Hulk Hogan commercial.
Oh, it's like a really bad movie starring Vin Diesel.
Right, it's fucked. But so the judge pulled in an article from 2016, right? Saying, in Julian's case, saying like, hey, he turned the Ecuadorian embassy into a full-blown spy operation, right? David Morales, right here, in the latter half of 2016, especially once Trump had won the elections, escalated the spying operations inside of the U.S. Embassy. At the same time, I believe that article that she referenced was written. So it wasn't Assange that was turning that place into a spy operation. He was literally just doing the same journalistic activities that he'd always fucking done. It was David Morales and the UC Global and the CIA that turned it into an espionage operation against the Ecuadorian government and a private citizen. So, like, that personally fucking bothers me. The fact that she can pull in this bullshit evidence saying that Julian turned the embassy into a spy ring when it was UC Global and the CIA that were literally doing that at that time. Around June or July 2017, Morales began to develop a sophisticated information collection system inside the embassy. He asked the employees who were physically inside the embassy to intensify and deepen their information collection. The employees who received the instructions from David Morales began to change the internal and external cameras of the embassy. The internal ones recorded sound. I was also informed by the employees that Morales instructed a team to travel regularly to London to collect camera recordings. After this, and Jerez packages of information were configured so that Morales would personally bring these to American authorities, with increases detailed and instructions on the privacy of Mr. Assange, his lawyers, doctors, and other visitors. He showed at times real obsessions in relation to monitoring and recording the lawyers who met with the guest, Julian Assange, because our American friends were requesting it. Fucking turning it into a spy ring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to pick this one up, Missy?
Yeah. On 24 January 2017, once Donald Trump had acceded to the presidency of the United States, David Morales sent a message over Telegram in which he wrote, quote, "Well, I want you to be alert because I am informed that we are being vetted. So everything that is confidential should be encrypted. That's what I'm being told. Everything relates to the UK issue. I am not worried about it. Just be alert. The people vetting are our friends in the USA," end quote. At the time, I didn't understand why Morales was asking me to be careful, but over time, this message made more sense. I possess. Why does that look weird? Yeah. These messages as evidence. I also recall that once Donald Trump won the elections at the end of 2016, the collection of information intensified as Morales became more obsessed with obtaining as much information as possible. Hence, I recall that between June and July 2017, I was summoned by David Morales to form a task force of workers at our headquarters in Jerez. Probably saying that wrong. The purpose of this unit was to execute from a technical perspective the capture, systemization, and processing of information collected at the embassy that David Morales requested. So I was tasked with executing David Morales' orders with the technical means that existed in the embassy and additional measures that were installed by order of Morales, in addition to the information gathered by the UC Global employees who were physically present in the diplomatic mission. This unit also had to travel to London every month to collect information. Coinciding with the new procedure to obtain information to meet the escalating needs of Morales, which coincided with Trump's accession to the U.S. presidency, David Morales indicated to the task force, of which I was a member, that the contract with Ecuador required that the cameras had to be changed every 3 years. This made no sense to me because the contract had been enforced for longer than 3 years, and the clause had not been fulfilled to date. Although I was not aware of the clause, I considered that its existence was not a reasonable justification. The circuit that was in operation at the time consisted of CCTV security cameras, which obviously did not record sound, were sufficient to provide physical security against intrusion inside the building. So basically, he's lying to people saying we have to upgrade the system because he wanted to be able to have sound.
Yeah, literally him just making shit up about having to escalate the security procedures at the
every 3 years. We got to change it every 3 years. That's right. The rule.
And
well,
that's
it hasn't
after
been 3
5
years.
years of having the contract that they're supposed to change it every 3.
Yes, they just wanted to be able to record the audio.
And this is the fucking organization that was watching over Rafael Correa's children, right? This was the organization responsible for the security of the fucking Ecuadorian president's kids. Mm-hmm. And this is what the fuck they were doing.
Working for the CIA at the same time.
Right. It's just insanity.
It is.
And then you see the way that the fucking entire nation of Ecuador just collapses after this chapter. Like, literally, they destroy an entire nation to try to bring down a president that supports Julian Assange.
Yeah. This is the lengths they will go to. And Julian Assange called it, "They will chase me to the ends of the earth." That's what he said. Mm-hmm. They will chase me to the ends of the earth. And he was right. He told us.
And the other thing, too, Well, we'll finish this and then I'll talk about that. Let me jump back in here. I don't have the video for the other part, so. In early December 2017, I was instructed by David Morales to travel with a colleague to install new security cameras. I carried out the new installation over the course of several days. I was instructed by Morales not to share information about the specifications of the recording system, and if asked, to deny that the cameras were recording audio. I was told that it was imperative that these instructions be carried out as they came supposedly from the highest spheres. In fact, I was asked on several occasions by Mr. Assange and the political counselor Maria Eugenia whether
Yes.
whether the new cameras recorded sound, to which I replied they did not, as my boss instructed me to do. Thus, from that moment on, the cameras began recording sound regularly, so every meeting that the asylee had was captured. When I traveled to install the cameras in December 2017, David Morales asked me to take pictures of the base, profile, and height of various decorative objects in the meeting room. Thus, following Morales' instructions, without knowing what the purpose was, I took these photos. Around June 2017, while I was sourcing providers for new camera equipment, David Morales instructed me that the cameras should allow streaming capabilities that our friends in the United States, as Morales explicitly put it, would be able to gain access to the interior of the embassy in real time. In January 2018, David Morales asked me to travel to London to install microphones in the embassy. Morales instructed me to place a microphone in the meeting room, placed in the PVC holder of the fire extinguisher in the meeting room, where it was glued to a magnet and then concealed at the base of the PVC plastic. Further to this, David Morales asked me to install another microphone in the toilet at the end of the embassy, a place that had become strategic because Mr. Assange, who suspected that he was the subject of espionage, maintained many of his meetings in order to perceive confidentiality. I also challenged Morales on his instructions, to which Morales responded that he was the boss and the person who knew the elements of security that had to be installed in order to fulfill the contract. I used a nearby socket to conceal a microphone and a cable in the toilet. I used a nearby socket to conceal a microphone in a cable in the toilet in the back of the embassy. So
They had microphones in the goddamn bathrooms, fam.
And then if you actually see, they show a layout. There's actually a video camera in the women's bathroom. Not even just this audio equipment. This audio equipment was recorded in the furthest stall down. So just to give you a little description of what the women's bathroom in the Ecuadorian embassy was set up like. It was accessible from a door on the, I believe it was right-hand side if you're facing the building. It was a longer rectangular room. And this is from pictures. I can show you a video that I think it was Sky News Australia or something had released that shows this, that there was a security camera pointed down the row of stalls. I don't know if it could see in or not. And then the microphone was installed in the last of two stalls against the right-hand wall in the bathroom. From what
Remember when everybody made fun of Julian and said that he was paranoid? Oh, he's so paranoid. There's no indictment. They're not spying on him. They're not doing this. Yeah, they were. And worse. I mean, they were stealing babies' diapers and plotting to assassinate him. That's what they were doing.
And we talk a lot about I talk a lot about like Chelsea Manning being the 1 in 100,000, Daniel Hale being 1 in a couple thousand, Joshua Schultz, if it was even him, being 1 in tens, right? This UC Global whistleblower was like 1 of 4, 1 of 8 maybe. You had the CIA, David Morales, this person that did the installation, and that's it. Like that is how exposed this.
Well, there were other, like there were the embassy employees who were also involved in all of this, who were, as people were visiting, they were taking their electronic devices and making what do they call it? Oh,
Like the digital strip searches, like the digital fingerprints of
yeah, like they
electronics.
basically like would clone your devices so that they would have like everything that's on your device. Which by the way, they did that to journalists, and journalists don't talk about it. Max Blumenthal has a great piece about it. But I mean, other than like Stefania Maruzzi and Max Blumenthal, they don't. No journalist is like coming out to complain that the CIA was literally spying on them as a journalist when they went to visit Julian Assange, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Ugh. Such a mess. It is.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. And nobody gives a shit. Nobody's talking about UC Global still.
Well,
It's crazy. Like
that's
it's
why
like and it,
that's why I thought it was so important to frame Craig's case in this way, because like yes,
yeah.
it is the Alex Salmon case. Yes, he did get sentenced to 8 months in prison because of that, but that is not why. It's just like Mumia getting put in jail for killing a police officer. Like that's not why he was
Mm-mm.
put into jail. Like that is the reason they used to incarcerate him, but that is not
In public,
why.
yeah. That's what they tell the public. They have to make you into a villain so that they can manufacture consent for what they're about to do to you. And that's what they always do. You know. And here we are. It's just fine that, this is what troubles me the most about the Julian Assange thing is that it's not even just the destruction of the First Amendment in broad daylight. The amount of human rights abuses that have taken place against him is insane.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, it's
it's
insane.
any aspect that you want to fight the global war machine or imperialist state or globalists or capitalism or whatever aspect you want to fight it from, even the like financial aspect of like people that want like fucking sound currency, right? Any way you want to approach this, whether it's prison conditions, whether it's finances, whether it's the need for a better police system, right? Whether it's personal privacy, whether it's the fucking ability to share information, no matter what your fight is, literally Julian's case is involved in it in some way. Even if it seems like some strange, obscure, like, but I fight for environmental issues. Julian literally, WikiLeaks and the works of WikiLeaks exposed the largest environmental corruption and catastrophe in human history, the Milton Report.
Well, forget even just that. But if what's happening to Julian Assange is allowed to happen to Julian Assange, it will come for all of us. Anybody who gives a shit and who wants to protest or wants to make changes, this is what they're going to do to you. I mean, it's happening. Look at the DVEs. We're all domestic violent extremists now. Look at what's happening. There's anti-protest bills across the country. The attack on global journalism, period. Look what's happening to Craig Murray. It's everything that we've been and I don't mean to like big up us like we're some Nostradamus or something, but everything that we have said from the day that this show started has come true. Like we've predicted all of the shit and the way that it was going to be handled and everything that it's led us into. And here we fucking are, and we still can't get people to give a shit, and it's really fucking frustrating.
Well, people don't realize that the work of WikiLeaks and the career of Julian Assange is literally like a global barometer for totalitarian pressure, right? Regardless of what you think about him or the work that he's done or anything, the way that the press is treated is expressed through Julian's case, literally exposing the most sensitive information possible with the utmost care. Like Vault 7, he contacted all of the fucking tech companies in advance and was like, hey, there's this massive hole in your security.
Let me
I
help
just
you.
happen to be a fucking tech wizard. May I help you fix it? And they scoffed at him. The world we live in right now, with all of these fucking cyber attacks going on, they're using the tools that weren't fixed from Vault 7 that we knew about in 2017. Like it's just fucking mind-blowing the level of like incompetence that people have in like journalistically, not like individual people, because
Although
like there's so much
it's
shit
hard
that's
for me to
just
believe it's
buried.
incompetence. It's hard for me to believe it's incompetence. I think it's a lot of corruption, and I think a lot of it is just these people. I think a lot of mainstream journalists tell themselves a lot of lies to make themselves feel better about the absolute shit that they are, you know? I think they convince themselves that they're doing good work, and if it wasn't for them, then it would be somebody else. And but you know, Chris Hayes got to talk about Yemen for 3 minutes, and so he, like, you know, convinces himself that that's good enough and that he has to, you know, just do that and just speak out when he can. And it's not good enough, fam. You're owned. You are completely owned by corporations. You're doing a huge disservice to humanity. Mainstream media is a ginormous threat to humanity. Period. End of story. And people will get mad at me and say, "Oh my God, you're such a Trumper." No, that's reality. I mean, how many times do they get to lie to you? They're lying to you now, constantly. That's hugely dangerous, and it's, you know, this huge propaganda machine, and they're seeking to, you know, gain even further control over the like what information you're allowed to see and read and receive and know, and that's terrifying. These people all have an agenda. They're force feeding you reality, and that's not good.
It's fucking horrifying.
It is. They're psychopaths. No, it's not good stuff at all.
So Kathy Vogan, she did release this on Consortium News already. Me and her did a really cool interview where we went over her article that she wrote about why the teenager bullshit is so important. Not that it's bullshit, but whatever. Why it's so important. And we did a really, really good deep dive. She edited it up super nice, pulled in a bunch of other graphics and stuff like that. So I'll probably run that at the end of this.
Cool. You want to wrap it up?
We don't have to wrap it up just yet. That's all that I have, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else either. So we can wrap it and start playing that for everybody. You guys should definitely check it out. Kathy Vogan's amazing, y'all. Mm-hmm. I love her. So definitely check out that interview. I was unable to make it because I was having a sleepover with Jessie Jet that night.
On Tuesday, we're having Krish as our guest host. And then we're going to have a whole big ass panel of of independent media content producer and tech guys. So I just think it'll be a really, really cool fucking way to talk about the way all of us deal with censorship. And
Sleepy Josh is going to be here.
I'm super pumped.
I'm so excited.
So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that in the next couple days. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm Misty. You can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I have another show called Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. We just interviewed Muhammad Elmaazi yesterday, and that's out. It's pretty much the same shit we just talked about, though. So, you know, whatever. And then also I have Bitch with Comrade Misty every Wednesday at 7. Last week was fucking drama-filled bullshit that I got thrown into the middle of last minute, but, you know, it was cool. We got to talk to Steve Cox and Fiorella about the stuff that happened at the March for Medicare for All. So you guys should definitely check that out. This week I'm having my friend Lucas on, Spana Spinoza on Twitter, which is fun just because he's a friend and it's fun to bitch with friends. And we don't really have anything specific I don't think that we're talking about. Last time he came on, he legitimately gave me homework, which was annoying. But I think this time is just going to be like a real just bitch session about just whatever is pissing us off for the day. There's lots to be pissed off about, so that'll be fun. So that's Wednesday at 7. What?
Because I just wanted to make a mention about something with Medicare for All. We're not fighting for the Bernie Sanders, give it all to Nancy Pelosi Medicare for All. We want actual fucking healthcare for people that isn't like controlled by federal institutions or for-profit institutions or anyone connected with the military-industrial complex.
And also fuck Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi.
Right, because we got single-payer healthcare under Donald Trump. It was called the CARES Act and the COVID relief shit. And what it did is it literally made it so if anything was said to be COVID, it was paid for. And then you had fucking Democratic governors and governors across the country roll out the fucking nursing home policies where they sent sick people into homes with nursing care patients and killed a bunch of old people.
And
intentionally.
Governor Cuomo is still governor and he's not in jail.
Right. Solutions like ivermectin and marijuana still aren't talked about. So I just want to be very clear that we're not fighting or even believe that Nancy Pelosi, someone that was read in on torture in 2003, should control anything.
No.
Right.
She shouldn't even be Speaker of the House. And she's Speaker of the House because of the squad. So let's be clear about that too. Because I'm real tired of the fucking excuses. Like the whole eviction moratorium that they ignored. We all knew that was fucking coming. And now Cori Bush wants to camp out on the steps of the Capitol building. Fuck off. Where have you been for weeks?
Right. Which is still behind fucking walls. So people couldn't even come and join her.
They signed the bill that made the eviction moratorium temporary. They knew this was coming. Nancy Pelosi said yesterday that she just found out about it. Fuck off. You didn't just find out about this shit. And so this performative nonsense where the AOC is like, oh, well, we ran to the House floor. We just weren't fast enough. Well, you've had fucking weeks. How slow are you? Like, you can't run faster? Like, I don't know. It seems, and now people are mad because I'm calling them out for their performative BS. It's performative fucking BS. They could have done something about this ages ago and they didn't. And that's a problem. And you should wonder why that is. Sorry, I will now stop itching about the squad.
And so the fucked up part, right? Because we talk shit about Marjorie Taylor Greene too, because she's literally the conservative AOC. Like,
she's nuts.
That's what she is. But she has even done more. Like, she is telling people to at least organize, even if it's just Twitter BS. At least it's not like, we're gonna do this bullshit. At least she's telling people, like, hey, could you do something? Like, even if it's the most
what would the squad
bullshit.
ignoring the eviction moratorium expiring do for you and your family? That's all you're going to get from the squad. That's it. Some bullshit tweet asking you. It's story time with the poors. You know what I'm saying? Drives me nuts. Pisses me off. And I'm so tired of people defending them. Oh, I'm so sick of it. These people, they don't give a shit about you. None of them. Not a one. I don't care. Sleeping on the steps of the Capitol is not impressive to me when you had weeks to actually do something.
And when you're not
to do
something. The physical barrier of the
national security they are voting to fund that shit. They want more of that shit.
They voted to turn the fucking the fucking Capitol Police into a federal local.
They have been
hyper
focused on January 6th since January 6th. Imagine what they could have done for the eviction moratorium in that time that they didn't do. But because they were too focused on giving the Capitol Police more money and putting up more walls and protecting them their damn selves. That's all they're worried about. They're worried about themselves. That's it. Period. End of story. They don't care about you. So fucking sick of this shit. But anyways, Lucas will be on Bitch on Wednesday. Don't forget about the Billboard fundraiser for Daniel. He's still got that going. I keep saying this. I'm going to start the Columbus one in like the next week or two, so I can get the thing outside the stadium, which is really awesome. And I think that's it. I think that's all I have right now.
My name's Andrew. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman, ZIGMUND. You can follow us at action_4 Assange. We have the Go Get funding. It's not a GoFundMe, but we have the Go Get funding up for the September actions. So if you could, please donate to help out with that. If you cannot, please share it around. Do not go broke donating. We're not politicians. We don't want to take your money and run away. No. If you can, please join us. That would be even more exciting than getting a donation if you're able to come out. If you are not able to come out to Washington with us, please organize locally. Please, on September 11th, hold your own End the Damn Wars Free Assange Fuck Censorship event, because that would be absolutely awesome. EndTheDamnWars.org is where you can find all of that stuff. But yeah, thank you guys very much for joining us, and please just keep doing what you can with the time and money that you have.